Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen show where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 165, Cobras, Cats, and Campaigns, recorded on September 24th, 2021 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
As always, we will start with our events. What are we doing next? Work Drive. Our next webinar is going to be on Work Drive. That's a good one, man. I mean, we're going to have to dive in. Are we going to go into like some of the cool API stuff we're doing? I think that would be fun.
Could dig in a little bit, show a couple tricks we've worked out with Work Drive. One little interesting thing there too is I got in touch with them. They don't have any API limits in place yet. So you can really do a lot from an integration perspective with Work Drive.
But I saw that email and it disturbs me because it's we don't have any API limits in place, but we will,
Yeah.
And then it was something like "Have a blessed day" or something. It was a very odd email. Well, let's hope that they grandfather people that maybe are doing, just a ton of things. Who knows? It's a little crazy. And as always, if you want to know about any of our events, just go ahead and head over to zenatta.com/events. And with that, let's get right on into the news. So this first story, iOS 15 brings big improvements to many Zoho mobile apps is wow. I mean, this is a 9-minute read. This is probably about 10 news stories all in one here because it's covering a whole bunch of apps. And normally we talk about all of these separately. But if you're not familiar, iOS 15 was just released. I actually haven't installed it on my phone yet to play with it, but it added a lot of new features and Zoho has just rolled them pretty much out on the day that iOS 15 came out. So widgets for begin are smarter and more secure. You've got pipelines now on your iPad, Smart Stack widget for Zoho Sign. So, if you're not an iOS user, none of this will mean anything to you. But Apple's really gotten caught up with basically where Android was about 3 years ago with their widgets now. And they've, you're able to do a lot with these widgets. The doc scanner has been improved. I forget about this doc scanner. This is a great application, by the way. And it's really weird. It's not even branded Zoho. You just search doc scanner and you find it and you'll notice that it is a Zoho app, but that's a great application. You want to take it from here, Tyler?
Sure. I mean, just kind of the rest of the updates are all just around new things that they've rolled out in iOS 15, really, and just Zoho kind of taking those and applying them to their own applications. So a lot of these are based on widgets, based on some of the notification options that you can do, better filtering on what should be notifying you. Nice one here too is drag and dropping files from inside of your own device. So similar to how you can on a computer, just drag and drop a file into something if you want to attach it. Kind of able to do that here within Begin now for actually adding in particular data into your CRM there. There's kind of a whole bunch of different updates here across the UI.
Yeah, iOS 15 is a major update. A lot of things happen there. So it goes on and on. Quick notes and books with Invoice. I mean, this article is 9 minutes long and there's just a ton of updates across the mobile devices. So if you are using Zoho on mobile, which by the way, I love on the iPad. I've got one client that uses it that just prefers straight up CRM on the iPad than to the desktop. Just loves living in that. So a lot of great stuff. So go ahead and take a look at that article. We have put all these links in our newsletter. So if you don't subscribe, head on over to zenatta.com/newsletter and go ahead and subscribe to that. All right. And that brings us to our next story, which is a super big one. All new topic management feature for targeted email marketing in Zoho campaigns. What does this really mean? What it really means is in the past, if you had somebody that you had a bunch of different segments inside campaigns, let's say over in the CRM, you'd set up custom views for 4 or 5 different things. One was for a newsletter. One was for like a live show announcement like we do for this saying, hey, come on, do the show. And maybe to one of those groups, you just also sent something like, hey, don't forget, we've got a webinar coming up. It used to be if you unsubscribed from anything you got in Zoho campaigns, that's it. You're out. You're out for life. You're not ever going to be getting any emails from Zoho campaigns ever again. Well, now you can set up basically various topics. And I think everybody's seen this who's using kind of it seems like this has been around for quite a while in most cases. You kind of have that ability to, when you go to unsubscribe, say, I want to get your newsletter, right? But I don't want to get webinars. I don't want to get these reminders. I don't want to get those kind of things. And you can do it. And now this is a thing. So there you go, everybody. Get your topics set up.
And I think a big one around this too is that the previous workaround, because in campaigns, when someone unsubscribes, previously they could unsubscribe from a list or from you as a sender as a whole. And so you kind of find yourselves creating separate lists for any of these particular groupings, so that if they were to unsubscribe, they wouldn't unsubscribe from everything altogether. They'd just be unsubscribing from that list. But there's some limits in terms of like how many lists you can sync from the CRM and how many different things you can kind of use as a list. So being able to group things into topics and let people more selectively unsubscribe without having to create a different list for each of these individual things is going to be a huge improvement for campaigns.
Yep. But what I have found, what I know to be a fact, is that it really didn't work that way. Okay. If they unsubscribed from the list, they were done. They're not getting, I don't know if you'd seen something different, but
depends which unsubscribe they choose.
Yeah. But anyway, well, this is better. I mean, I like this because you could even have something like webinars, initial webinar announcement, webinar reminders, right? Because they can say, I don't want to get the reminders, just give me the initial announcement. I mean, it's nice. It's going to be great to see this implemented and rolled out, and it's available now. So go ahead and set all of that up. So good stuff right there. And then moving right along, also with Zoho Campaigns is now HIPAA compliant. So super nice here. You can now say what fields can sync over to campaigns, what fields can't sync. You can restrict them by data export. You can restrict through API. A lot of nice stuff here around HIPAA compliance. They've really been focusing on this both in CRM and other applications lately.
Yeah, and I think this one will be kind of like an extension too for what they've got in CRM. They kind of are part and parcel, right? That if you have that HIPAA compliance stored in the CRM, you have to be able to say that can't just come over to campaigns, right? Because there's some specific additional rules around the transfer of any data that is or that needs to be HIPAA compliant. So definitely a nice update, but also there for people that are just using campaigns. So even if you're using it without a CRM, you can still follow these specific regulations.
All right. And then moving on with the news, Zoho People has introduced the kiosk mode. So those of you who don't know Zoho People, it's basically Zoho's HR software management tool. And now you can actually spin up a kiosk that allows employees to check in. And it's going to use facial recognition to verify that the person who is actually checking in is the person who is checking in. So you can't have someone say, hey, check in for me. I'm running 15 minutes late. Very nice. They've kind of had this, I thought they rolled this out earlier, but I think the rollout was it in Workerly or one of those?
I believe so. It got rolled out for like the field service management.
Yeah. So this is nice. So basically you can fire up an iPad if you're watching on the video and kind of just have it there and people can come in, check in to work and check out. So if you're doing all of your time tracking inside of Zoho People, pretty slick.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is one thing to note, I believe you'll have to turn it on first under the attendance module, and then you download a separate app to actually use on that iPad or that device. So a couple little steps to activate it and get it set up. But once you've got it enabled and the app downloaded, it should be pretty straightforward to activate this.
Yeah, the app is called Zoho People Kiosk, and it's available for Android and Apple as well. So cool little feature. Nice to see that being added. All right. And then we've got the part 2 of the Q2, Q3 Zoho Mail Roundup. We talked about part 1 last week, and this is part 2. I skimmed through this. We don't use Zoho Mail internally here at Zenatta. We've talked about this. I don't know. I know one day, maybe 2022 is the year, Tyler, we'll make the move. I do use it though privately. So all my private emails handled in Zoho Mail, and just a lot of nice. You can have you can start a conversation in folders that are shared with you now. You can set up reminders inside of streams. Just some kind of nice little features that they've added in to Zoho Mail. This is a product that is constantly getting improved. And, a lot of companies do use this, but let's face it, I got to think that Zoho, with their 10,000 plus employees, they're the ones that are constantly demanding the improvements on this because it's the main application for them, right?
Yep.
And with that, let's go on to our next story, which is Zoho Recruit September 2021 updates. This one I love. This was a blog where they're saying we're solving common user problems inspired by some of our team's pet peeves. And so basically just running through things that it looks like they want to have in Zoho Recruit, and they finally put them in. I love this one. Click notification. We use Zoho Recruit. We love it. If you haven't used it, it works with almost every job board that's out there. You go ahead, you create your job posting, you push it out. They all come into Zoho Recruit. The first one is click integration. So I'm sitting here, I'm looking at a candidate. I like the candidate. I think they're interesting. I can just drop it into Click and say, hey, Tyler, take a look at this guy. What do you think? Without having to send an email or just go over to Click and say, hey, we got somebody new inside, check that out. Super, super nice addition to Recruit there as well. And then the second one, Tyler, is interesting. You can send out surveys to candidates, clients, and vendors, but I don't think it's using Zoho Survey. I kind of went through this. I think it's separate.
The UI looks very similar to Zoho Survey. I have to imagine they're using that as the backend there because that little dashboard there, I believe, is Zoho Survey. So it's either they kind of copy pasted the tool into Recruit, or they're running on some type of integration. Yeah, it looks here like it is from Zoho Survey.
Okay. So that means if you're just using Zoho Recruit, you're going to have to purchase Zoho Survey, I would imagine.
Yeah, it looks pretty similar to what they do with the CRM integration. We're able to kind of tie the two together and send things out as needed.
Yeah, but the way they're putting it here, it's almost like they just built it in, right? Send out surveys. But my guess is, if I'm going to go off number one, which is we've an embedded Click, I'm going to say that now they've integrated Survey, and they hadn't done that before. All right. Number three, sourcing your clients is just a copy and paste away. So before, you could automatically add candidates in, but you couldn't clients, and now you can. So that is nice.
Yeah, and this is actually for their little resume extractor, which is a pretty cool plugin where if you have it installed in your browser and you have a particular resume open, you can kind of select all the text in it and use this plugin to just dynamically read it and enter it into Recruit for you. It's just a nice little time saver there.
Yeah. And then they've got some smart options for improved filter views. They've kind of really enhanced the overall common views. And inside of, basically, if you're familiar with custom views in the CRM, this is the same thing inside of Zoho Recruit. All right. And that brings us to in other news. So this is news of the weird in Zoho this week. We're going to start with, for those of you that are fast interested in the Indian Premier League, the cricket league over in India, you can now rekindle your enthusiasm with the Zoho Calendar integration that basically will tell you everything that's going on in the Indian Premier League. You can follow all your favorite teams. I actually like this. This is kind of funny because I wouldn't mind it. I'd love to see this for, hey, drop Dodger baseball in, drop whatever in. So anyway, I would imagine that the team over at Zoho are big cricket fans. And so guess what? You can drop it all into your Zoho calendar now.
It's very much a why not right there.
Why not? And never miss a game. So good job, guys. All right. And then this hit my inbox last night at around 9:00, and we just had to get it in. But Sridhar Vimbu, the CEO of Zoho, as if you follow this show, he has actually moved to a small village just outside of Chennai, where he is doing a whole bunch of good work. It's part of their whole process of, what do they call it? Transnational localism, basically building these small little satellite offices, being able to have people work rurally. So rather than have an office with 100 people in it, you have a small little rural office with maybe 10 people in it. You're all connected by the internet. But he kind of really took this to heart, and he moved out into the middle of nowhere. And while he was doing so, he managed to run into a 12-foot long king cobra yesterday. And he was nice enough. He went ahead and he posted the whole thing on Twitter. And quite crazy. So this is in Times Now, news.com, which is an English language Indian paper, I would imagine. And man, I'll tell you what, this is crazy. He posted about it on Twitter. Quite interesting stuff there. So, look at this thing, dude. This is the craziest.
This is no joke.
This is no joke. They talk about cobras and I look at this thing, I'm like, my goodness. And then of course we got this great picture. Everybody's holding the damn cobra. There's Sridhar there in the middle, I tell you what. And so that has inspired me, Tyler. That has inspired me for us to start a new segment called "And in Other Cobra News," where we can cover all the latest cobra news that goes on. There aren't a lot of countries where there are cobras. So I'm going to go back to India again for this little bit of cobra news. A king cobra was about to enter the home of a family, and their cat stared it down for 30 minutes so it didn't come into the house. There you go.
So good cobra news from around the world here today.
Good cobra news, man. You should never forget how badass cats are. Right? I think we do. True. Oh, cute little house cat. They're always just looking at us, deciding when's going to be best time to kill us anyway. So anyway, and with that, let's go to our implementation of the week.
Yeah, so this was an implementation here that we built out for CRM and analytics, specifically around managing and reporting on some elements of deal flow. So the Zoho Analytics connector will pull in from the CRM the stage history of your deals. It's a field that's on by default that basically gets updated as a running list anytime that you move from one stage to another. And it basically gives you information about when that update happened, how long it was in that stage before it left it, and some of that information. The raw data in that can be pulled into analytics to use for calculating things like how long it takes to get through stages, where are we at right now, where have we been on a particular deal. But using the raw data, it's a little bit tricky to calculate a specific stage fall off. So if you were to ask the question, for all my deals that are closed lost, what was the last stage they were in before they went to closed lost? This data is just a little tough to pull a report on on its own. What we're able to do is basically build out a little query table like we always seem to do in analytics, where we're pulling in, for each deal, what was the stage it was last in. So we're kind of just doing a little query that pulls in just the one previous record that doesn't represent the stage that it's currently in. And using that, we can go ahead and run reports on, particular stages where you might be seeing some fall off. Right. So you might notice that, your proposal stage is where a lot of things are falling off. And, maybe once you get past that, it's pretty much a done deal. So you can try to figure out some of these areas where your funnel is a little bit leaky, where you might want to adjust some of your processes and procedures to shore that up.
I love this. So, this is, we were just talking about this the other day. One of the things that comes for every single CRM you have is when you're setting up your stages, you're setting up probability. And most people ask the question, well, what should my probability be? And it's like, well, we have absolutely no idea until you've been running this for 6 months to a year, right? Mm-hmm. Until you get really, really good data analytics. What I'm talking about here is maybe every time, if you can just get on a phone call with somebody, you can establish that, 13% of every phone call you do is going to close. Right? Mm-hmm. And if they say, can you send me some information on that, and that's a stage, sent information, that's going to take it up to 23%, but you're never going to know, and then you get to proposal, what percentage of your proposals close? For me, that's kind of the big one, which is what percentage of your proposals close, but it's nice to know all this other data, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's super nice. I bet you what would be possible then, since you're able to do all of this and calculate all this, you could calculate all the percentages inside analytics as well, right?
You could. It would take a little massaging. You might need to create a table or more than one table to do that. But if you wanted to figure out, like, let's say you have stages, new inquiry, sent proposal, and closed one. If you wanted to calculate how many of them hit proposal, also hit closed one, you would use a slightly different method than this, but it would still be a query table to answer that question.
Be interesting. And I know we can push data from analytics back to CRM. So could you then push those percentages into the...
I would probably just go ahead and add them.
The stage and probability map. No, if you wanted real-time metrics, right? Well, let's take it to the next level.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. You might be able to. I will say that CRM has an API for a lot.
I will not be able to, but you might be able to. This is what I'm saying.
Possibly. So, I don't know about that one. That might be automating for automation's sake in that case.
That could be. But it would actually just be nice to have a report that you could look at.
Yeah, even if you could update it every quarter or every couple months and see how things are changing and progressing, you could update that. And where a lot of that stuff ends up mattering, right, is if you're looking at future cash flow and you want to look, okay, all of our deals that are supposed to close next month based on what stage they're at, how much money should I expect to come in, right, by weighting these with a probability. So it's kind of a valuable thing to look at, but a little tricky to calculate sometimes without building some query tables.
Super nice. Super nice. All right. And that brings us to this week's read. But we've got reads. These are kind of quick ones. This has been around for a long time. If you're not familiar with Guy Kawasaki, he was an Apple evangelist. I think that was his original title. Friends with Steve Jobs, and he would basically go around and just evangelize Apple all the time, and did a ton of public speaking. And he's basically an entrepreneur. He's an angel investor. He does all sorts of things. And I saw him talk about this, I want to say, I don't know, 5-10 years ago. But he basically has this rule that you have the 10-20-30 rule, which means if you're going to do any sort of pitch presentation, you should have 10 slides. It shouldn't be more than 20 minutes, and it needs to be 30-point font for what you're going to do. And he basically runs through the entire thing. So that you basically, because you're talking to them, people have gotten to the point where PowerPoint slides are these just text-rich documents. And he's like, that's not what it is when you're giving a PowerPoint, right? It's just, here's the topic and I'm going to talk to it and here's the basics of it. And so this is a quick little read on his philosophy on how to give a pitch and a presentation. I've loved this. I've used it in the past, and I think it's worth. It just came up randomly in an article.
That's good advice. I've heard it said before. People are either reading or listening, and so if you have a lot of text on your PowerPoint, they're going to be reading and might miss something that you're saying. So it seems pretty in line with a lot of the stuff he's talking about.
There's nothing worse than having someone read a PowerPoint to you, right? It's like, hey, I can read it for the most part. So. All right. And then over at HubSpot, 7 reasons scale-ups earn investments, according to HubSpot's founder. I found this interesting. Really not for, this is his reason he would want to invest in a company that's scaling up. But I just thought that this was kind of 7 good rules for what you should strive for your company to be. Right. When I read through this, there's evidence of customer happiness. You definitely want your customers. The organization's primary roles have great people. And I would expound on this, and he does later, which would mean everybody in the company should be great people. Right. Unit economics are stable and sustainable. Right. Do they have something that's real and growing and good? The culture in the organization is well articulated. Strong focus on customer value. The company has strong strategic planning process, and the organization has an engaged workforce. It's really funny, but reading through this is kind of like, well, yeah, you kind of have to have that, right? And especially if you're going to put money in a company. But I don't know if you got a chance to look through this or not, but I found he had some really good points in here.
Yeah, it is interesting to look at. I mean, it's I like the highlight on, or he highlights it kind of a couple different ways and a couple different kind of ways of saying it, is just around being super focused on the core value that you provide for customers. it's really easy to get distracted. And I'm sure specifically if you're looking at a company that you want to invest money in, having that kind of razor focus on like, what do we need to do to provide the most value and make customers as happy as possible, while maintaining a happy and healthy organization.
Yeah. And he talks about a net promoter score as well as I think he called it an employee net promoter score, which I think is interesting as well. You do want your employees to promote your own business, right? To other people. Mm-hmm. I think some of the best employees we've got are from our employees saying this company's great, you should come work for it. So anyway, nice little read there. I thought I would point that one out. And over on Zenatta, we did our PageSense full product tutorial last week, and we have turned it into a full-blown blog. So if you're unfamiliar with PageSense, it is Zoho's Swiss Army knife of web tools to track everything that's going on your website. And Tyler and I did a webinar on that. Was that Tuesday of this week?
It would have been Tuesday, yeah.
This week.
Quick week.
Yes, we did it on Tuesday of this week and kind of went through, I think we covered probably 70% of everything you can do inside it, that I think most all the valuable stuff. And this is a write-up. So if you don't like watching and you just want to read, we kind of cover all the big features right here. And you can go ahead and take a look at that blog as well. And then that brings us to our pick of the week. So Tyler, this is a really interesting one. So this is a Zoho plugin. It's called Customer Insights for Zoho Desk. And I really like it because when you put it in, you're going to get another kind of little icon. What would you call this little menu area over here?
It's a little like widget or extension icon. Generally call it some kind of widget when it's doing a pop-up like that.
But this is where you're going to put, anyway, if you click into that little new icon you get, it tells you some customer insights, how many tickets they've opened, total, how many are open, how many are closed, average first time to response, average time to resolution, all of those kind of things. It is a really, really insightful, valuable widget, but it just works randomly, we found. So I installed it. We've been using it. So it's completely, the widget itself has disappeared from all instances of anything I do. Yesterday happened to be one of those days where I reach out and I speak to pretty much everybody in the company. So I had everybody's like go on and go, hey, try this. Tyler, you and I were the only ones it didn't work for. Everybody else it worked for perfectly well. So I don't know if we were jinxed, but I kept trying it, taking a look at it. If you can get it to work, great. I think if you're using Zoho Desk, it's just a nice little plugin to tell you what's going on and who's, how many tickets these people open, how long I liked it just for looking at resolution times and first ticket response, right? I mean, our goal is to get all of our first ticket response time to under 2 hours. And not only get that, but then to try to close things, I would say in less than, what would you think? 72 hours, right?
If it depends on what the ask is.
Right. Some things should be closed instantly, right? Answered and closed, which will bring down your overall response time. Anyway, but a nice little widget goes through, does some nice monitoring. I mean, you could pull all this stuff into analytics and just look at a report that way.
Yeah, the big thing, that you definitely could pull this into analytics. But the nice thing about this plugin is that it does it for a user about a specific customer. So you might find like maybe you pull this up and hey, this person is generally a little longer than average on the response time. Maybe we need to like work this a little quicker, right? Because maybe we've made some mistakes with that customer in the past and we need to, earn some credit back. So it gives the user a good way to just get a top down of the history of interaction with that person. For like management level reporting, you're going to want to do that in analytics, but on a per user basis and letting them see the context about a particular person they're working with, it's super helpful.
Yeah, nice app. So anyway, if you head over to go with the Zoho Marketplace and it's Customer Insights for Zoho Desk.
It has a lot of good reviews, which leads to believe maybe the issues you and I were having were just kind of one-off oddball things. If it had, more widespread issues, it wouldn't have such a good review score there.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. And it's been around a while too, which was kind of interesting. It was actually released October 30th, 2018. they last did an update to it just a little over a month ago.
Yeah.
So they're doing stuff with it, I guess.
It's interesting with Zoho Desk. They've done this. They've done it a couple times where they release a new really nice piece of functionality as a plugin for Desk rather than just deploying it to Desk. Like they do ticket round robining. You can do via plugin. Advanced reporting in Desk is actually with a plugin. It's kind of interesting. I guess they might want to keep the tool really lean so it loads as quick as humanly possible. And then if you kind of need some of this extra stuff, you can install it. But it's interesting how they kind of roll some of these features out because people might miss them.
Yeah, I think I'd rather that it was just back in settings and you could turn it on and it would just install, right?
Yeah.
Because there's all sorts of authentication. So the authentication failed the first time I set this up. And then I had to uninstall. Then I had 2 versions of it installed. Then I had to deinstall everything, which is, I think, what's causing all the problems. Mm-hmm. Then I had to reinstall it because there were authentication issues with it across the board. So if you're listening, maybe have a, optional add-on section. I know they got the marketplace, but like just automatically install this stuff, if a person wants to check on it. All right. And then that is going to bring us to our tip of the week. I think I'm running out. And this was how to set up email signatures inside Zoho CRM. You may think, well, that's quite obvious, but Zoho moved it all around and changed it. About a month ago, month and a half ago. And so now you can not only you can have multiple email signatures tied to multiple email addresses and respond based upon the address and all those kind of things. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more you can do with it now. And they moved it. That's one of the big ones.
Altogether, it's definitely an improvement. I do want to highlight, if you're listening, double check your CRM signature once this goes live for you. We had a couple users that the signatures did not copy over to this new place, and they just had to re-add them. So worth a double check next time you're in the CRM, just to make sure that you and all your users have your signatures set up.
Yeah, definitely. And again, as they moved, so it's, you don't find signatures under your personal information back on settings. It's now under email, which makes a lot of sense. So if you go under email, it's a whole new section.
Yeah. The one thing I wish, maybe I need to double check, maybe this edit or this update did it, but I wish that the admin could just add the signatures for people. They've never been able to do that before. Maybe this is a step towards that. Right. The last time I checked, we're still not able to do it, which would be nice.
One of the things Josh was going to do, did he even bother? He was going to push signatures in. Remember that? The
API. Kevin in the chat's telling me it's possible. So maybe I've just missed it, which would be, I'd love to be wrong on that.
Interesting.
That would be a nice little improvement.
We'll take a look at that. All right. And with that, we'll move on to our Q&A. So if you've got any questions, if you're listening live here, if you want to go ahead and drop them in there. And while you're putting those questions in, we're going to talk about what happened, what questions we got from YouTube this week. So this is turning into be a fascinating exercise, Tyler, because it kind of shows that, man, YouTube, people just go watch stuff. So I don't know when you did this YouTube video, but it was quite a while ago.
A long time ago.
Yes, how to automate event creation via Zoho CRM deals with email invites to all and the deals module. And Brent Osborne wrote, I need a script. How do I get a script to make this work? So what do we got for him?
This script is living in a demo account somewhere where I set it up for that video. I'd say, Brent, maybe get in touch with us and we can help you out with that.
Yeah. If we find it, I guess, do you think you did this in a demo account?
I did, yeah.
All right. So we are going to be doing some things here. We've got some plans for next year. We're going to be posting more of this stuff so that when we do these, there will be dummy scripts. So when we do them, we're going to create the script, put it in a little repository so people will have access to it. So anyway, that is... sorry, we couldn't really help you with that there. And then we got a question on YouTube. This is an interesting one. This was on setting up Zoho Mail. And it says, are you saying we wouldn't have to use Google Workspace and just need Zoho Mail for everything? No, we're not really saying that. I think Mail is a really big preference and Workspace is a really big preference. And people need to look at their organization. We see this all the time. And I think it's particularly true in large organizations. where people have been using Outlook for their entire lives, and that's all they do. And they're used to using, Microsoft Word and Excel and all of those kind of things. And they're, and sometimes to make these switches causes more upheaval than it's worth. On the other hand, yes, you wouldn't have to use Google Workspace. I mean, we're kind of a hybrid here, right?
Yeah. And I think it's important to highlight too with this is that Zoho Mail itself would not completely replace Workspace. You would need like Zoho's whole kind of workspace package that would look at like Work Drive as well to replace Google Drive. You might need like Zoho Office, Meetings. Yeah. Kind of their whole backend tool would be mostly what you need here.
Yeah. So there's, the little whole Office suite for Zoho, which by the way, is probably the best deal on the planet. I mean, man, the things they throw into that Office suite. And if you're a company just spinning up, and you've got it going, I mean, you can't Work Drive, Mail, all of the Office products, they throw in Click is thrown into there. There's just all kind of, they also, I think Meetings is thrown into there as well, right? So you get, for I want to say $9 per user per month or something like that, you get everything you need for internal collaboration and email and getting up and going. And it's well worth it. But SunUp, this is really, honestly, this is from SunUp Solar. So this is a preference. You have to kind of really take a look at those applications, see if they're going to work for your organization. Honestly, we live in Work Drive and we mostly use Zoho Office apps, right? I think it's calendar and email. We're still living in Google for the most part. But we're taking a look, and I think it's such a personal preference thing. So, all right, next question. This is from Delane. He is asking you, Tyler, how can I achieve that when a meeting is moved or canceled and that Zoho entry is also changed? And what he's talking about is you did a Calendly CRM integration through Zoho Flow video. And he's wondering, well, once you do that integration and a person moves the meeting or cancels the meeting, how do I update everything in the CRM?
Yeah, so it's a good question. There are 2 triggers that are available from Calendly into Zoho Flow, and they're actually the same into Zapier as well. So you can basically make stuff happen when a Calendly meeting is scheduled or canceled. So if you wanted to achieve this, you would set up a second flow that's looking for canceled meetings and looking into the CRM to remove the CRM version of that meeting. If a meeting is moved, however, that's where it gets a little bit trickier. They don't have a specific trigger to say if a meeting is moved to go ahead and move it in the CRM. Depending on how you're doing this and what you need, you may be able to get away with just using the Google Calendar to CRM integration that comes kind of out of the box with Zoho. The breakpoint would be if all you need is to see these meetings in the CRM connected to the proper contact, you can probably get away with just using, Calendly to Google Calendar and then Google Calendar with its pre-built integration for the CRM. You really only need to go down the rabbit hole of building it in Flow if you need other stuff to happen. So let's say that you had a contact who had an open deal at stage 1, and you had a workflow rule that said, once they book me on Calendly, I want to move that deal to stage 2. That's where you would need to look at using Flow to kind of make some of these other things happen. But if you are just really looking to make sure that meetings are moved and kind of synced with a contact when they're coming in from Calendly, you should probably take a look at the Google Calendar plugin and just, not use Flow in that case.
Yeah. Clean integration.
Yeah. And so it kind of depends what you need. I will say, though, the one limitation is if you do need this to run through Flow so that you can do some of those other actions, unfortunately, there's not a trigger if it's rescheduled in Calendly, only when it's initially scheduled.
All right. And then our last question was from Steven Sandor, who was talking about our PageSense tutorial we did this week. He said, so in there, in order for PageSense to operate, there's a little bit of code that you need to drop into your WordPress site or your website, period. And for WordPress, Tyler, I think I said that there is a plugin for WordPress, and you can just go search for that PageSense plugin and drop the code in there, and away you go. I was wrong. There is a plugin, but the plugin you want is actually the Sales IQ plugin. So I know this may be counterintuitive, but if you get the Sales IQ plugin and you drop it in, all this is a little plugin that sits inside of WordPress. And when you go into it, you've got just a text box and you say, I want to run this script and I want to run this script and I run it. It doesn't have to just be Sales IQ. So you can stack. I think I've stacked 5 or 6 scripts in there. And it just makes sure that that code is running on every page so that it can track everything that you're looking for. So it wasn't actually called the PageSense plugin. It's the Sales IQ plugin. Just make sure when you're dropping your little code snippets in that you put a line break between them. If you run them together, I found it has trouble with that sometimes. So kind of if you put a line break between each one of them, it works a little better. And that's it. Anything to add to that, Tyler?
No, I think that covers it.
All righty. And then Kevin in chat room said, nope, wrong. So yes, you cannot automatically update user signatures. So yeah.
Oh, he recanted his testimony. I was actually excited. I was really hoping I was wrong because that would be great.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, we actually have an internal application and that we do a lot of stuff with. It's a creator application that actually auto generates all of our user signatures. And I know Josh was looking to go from there, and then which he could push them all if he wanted to. I don't know if he's taking the time to do that or not, but anyway. All right. And with that, guys, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, just head over to zenatta.com and drop us a line.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. As always, you can follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.